grab your coffee, pull up a chair, and take a deep breath. Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a university student staring down the barrel of a cyber forensics midterm tomorrow, and you're feeling that cold sweat because you, well, maybe kinda completely missed a few lectures, hey, do not panic. Consider me your personal study buddy. By the end of this explainer, you're going to be fully prepped, locked in, and ready to absolutely ace that exam.
I know exactly why you're here. We are officially in cram mode, which means we're skipping all the fluff. Today, we're only going to cover the absolute high-yield, exam-critical facts. We're going to use real-world analogies, straightforward memory tricks, and clear concepts so this stuff actually sticks in your brain when you're sitting in that exam hall tomorrow.
All right, here is our cram syllabus. First, the digital crime scene. 2, the investigation process. 3, file systems and booting. 4, recovering hidden evidence. 5, malware forensics. And finally, a midterm rapid revision. Let's get to work.
Section 1, the digital crime scene. Knowing exactly what to look for and where to find it.
So, before we can catch the bad guys, we need to know what we're actually doing, right? Computer forensics is essentially the process of gathering and preserving evidence from a device so it can be presented in a court of law. To do that, you've got to know where that evidence actually lives. Now, do not fall for this common multiple choice trap: volatile versus non-volatile data. Think of volatile data which is stored in RAM, like a classroom whiteboard. It holds active, running processes and network connections, but the second the power goes out, that whiteboard is wiped completely clean. It is lost forever. Non-volatile data, on the other hand, is stored on hard drives and USBs. That's more like a permanent ink journal. Even if you literally pull the plug, those images, emails, and documents are still written right there on the pages.
And hey, speaking of copying those journals, do not confuse a normal file copy with a forensic image. A normal file copy is basically just you sitting down and typing out the text of a book. You get the words, sure, but a forensic image? That's a high-resolution, bit-by-bit photograph of every single page. It captures the empty spaces, the erased pencil marks, the hidden metadata, the deleted files, the whole shebang. To find digital evidence, investigators absolutely must work from a forensic image, never just a standard copied file.
Moving right along to Section 2, the forensic investigation process, following the rules to make evidence hold up in court.
Listen to me carefully here. All your elite technical skills mean absolutely zero if you don't follow proper legal procedures. If the rules aren't followed, your evidence just gets thrown out. First up in those procedures is incident response. When a cyber attack hits, this is your emergency playbook. You need to memorize these 6 steps in this exact order: preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. A great memory trick for this is PICERL. PICERL. Incident response is basically how you stop the bleeding and get the business running again.
But while incident response stops the bleeding, the 7 phases of investigation are how you build a legally sound case to actually put someone behind bars. Note that difference for your exam. These phases are identification, preservation, collection, examination, analysis, documentation, and finally, presentation. Basically, you're securing the scene, safely collecting data, examining it for clues, analyzing timelines, and writing up a report that a judge and jury can actually understand.
Now, to ensure absolute integrity during all of this, investigators use the golden rule of evidence collection, a hardware write blocker. If a descriptive question asks how you prevent altering source data, this is exactly your answer. Notice how it sits directly between the investigator's computer and the suspect's hard drive. It allows you to read and copy the data to make your forensic image, but it physically blocks any data from being written back to the original drive. That ensures literally nothing is accidentally changed.
So why do we care so much about integrity? 2 words: chain of custody. This is a strict, highly documented legal process. It proves exactly who collected the evidence, when and where it was collected, and how it was stored. It requires signatures from every single person who touches it. If there's even a tiny gap in the chain of custody, you better believe the defense attorney will argue the evidence was tampered with, and boom, your case is dismissed.
All right, Section 3, hardware, file systems, and booting, the physical foundation of digital evidence.
We're zooming in now from the legal courtroom process down to the actual metal and silicon where the files live. You've got to know this physical foundation to understand where evidence actually hides. So first up, we have a traditional hard disk drive, or HDD. It uses actual physical spinning magnetic platters.
Data on these platters is physically arranged into concentric circles called tracks, which are then subdivided into sectors. Clusters are just groupings of those sectors. Compare that to a solid-state drive, or SSD, which uses flash memory with 0 moving parts, making it way, way faster.
Now, to manage all those clusters and sectors, the operating system uses a file system. Think of the file system as a library's Dewey Decimal System. It indexes exactly where every piece of data is located. For your exam, just mentally link these together right now. Windows uses FAT32 and NTFS, Linux uses ext4, and modern Macs use APFS. So if you see NTFS on the test, you instantly know you're dealing with a Windows environment. Easy points.
So how does that OS actually wake up? Through the booting process. This universal timeline starts with power on. Then, the BIOS, or UEFI firmware, initializes the hardware and runs the post. That's the power on self-test to make sure nothing's broken. Then it selects the boot device and executes the OS bootloader. Also, make sure you remember this difference. A cold boot is turning the computer on from a completely powered off state, while a warm boot is just clicking restart without cutting the actual electrical power.
Next up, Section 4, Recovering Hidden Digital Evidence, finding the data they try to delete.
You know, suspects always think they can just hit delete or hide their files to destroy the evidence. But as forensic investigators, we definitely know better. When a file is deleted, the file system just removes its entry from the directory, essentially marking that physical space as available. But the actual ones and zeros, they're still sitting right there on the hard drive until they get overwritten by new files. A really powerful forensic tool like Autopsy bypasses the operating system's normal view entirely. It looks directly at the raw hexadecimal binary data on the disk. By analyzing file signatures, which are the unique headers of a file, Autopsy can carve out and resurrect those quote-unquote deleted documents, hidden files, and decoded text. It's almost like magic, but it's just math.
Moving on to Section 5, Intro to Malware Forensics, Analyzing Malicious Code and Its Intent.
Okay, so we're transitioning now from the physical device to the weapon itself. Let's clearly explain a super common area of confusion for students. Computer forensics investigates the device, the who, where, and how of the digital evidence left behind by a user. Malware forensics, however, dissects the actual malicious code living inside the device to understand the what and the why. Like, how does the code actually function? To find out, we use static analysis, which is examining the code without running it, often using reverse engineering to deconstruct the software. And then there's dynamic analysis, where we actually execute the malware in a safe sandbox to watch its behavior in real time.
You are absolutely going to have matching questions on the types of malware, so let's rapid fire through these. Just associate one key action word with each. A virus infects and self-replicates. A worm spreads across networks without any user interaction. A Trojan disguises itself as legitimate software. Ransomware encrypts your data and demands money. Spyware steals your data, and a rootkit hides malicious processes deep in the system. Identifying these behaviors gives us our IoCs, indicators of compromise, which basically act as the digital fingerprints alerting us that a system is infected.
Now, consider fileless malware. This ties perfectly back to our very first topic on volatile data. Fileless malware resides entirely in active memory, the RAM. It leaves absolutely zero footprint on the hard drive. Because there's no saved file to easily reverse engineer, static analysis is often completely useless here. Investigators have to rely heavily on live dynamic analysis to catch it before a cold boot wipes it away forever. It's super sneaky.
Almost done. Section 6, Midterm Rapid Revision. High-yield concepts to ace the exam.
All right, shake out your hands, grab your pen, and let's lock in the most crucial, testable takeaways we've covered today so you can walk into that exam room with total confidence. If you're asked an essay or descriptive question about evidence preservation, you absolutely must write down these two things. First, the hardware write blocker, which physically prevents data alteration during collection. Second, hashing. Algorithms like MD5 and SHA-1 create a unique mathematical digital fingerprint for your forensic image. If even one single pixel of an image changes, the hash changes completely. It is your ultimate, undeniable mathematical proof of the chain of custody.
And finally, I want to leave you with this thought to chew on. We've seen how powerful forensic tools can recover hidden files from hard drives. But as attackers shift toward fileless malware that lives only in temporary RAM, will traditional hard drive forensics one day become completely obsolete? It's a fascinating look at the ongoing cat-and-mouse game in cybersecurity. Anyway, good luck in your midterm tomorrow. You've got the concepts, you know the terms, and for sure you are going to crush it. Thanks for cramming with this explainer.